So with Cameyo, there's an issue with the using of Adobe fonts. Unfortunately, they've turned off your access to that, which is really bothersome. So let me show you a couple of the things that are going to come up that I anticipate being a problem. So the first thing is when you're dealing with the fonts that he is going to have you choose. Like for example, this one is one that's called Dido, and this is one that's called Roboto. If you can't access those fonts, that's fine. Go ahead and choose a different font. With Dido, let me go right up here. Dido is, if you choose the filter, you can choose, it is a sans serif font. So you can click on that and it'll show you only the sans serif fonts that are available. And I've got a ton of fonts, so I'm hesitant to tell you which one to choose. But Dido has these really thin lines. I'm not too worried about the exact one that you use. You could try Garamond. There's this one right here. That one you have. You could try pretty much anyone that looks decent to you. The key thing that we're looking for, like Castellan, is if it disappears, it just means that that box is too small for the font. So even though we didn't change the font size, each font has a different X height, meaning how big is the lowercase x. So it's going to change. So if it ever disappears, or more important, you've really, especially when we're dealing with fonts, check to make sure you don't have any red plus signs. That red plus sign means that there's overset text. One of the ways you can also tell is down here at the bottom. See, there's a red dot. That red dot is telling me that there's an error, and I can click on this. And if I choose pre-flight panel, it'll let me know that I have an error on page 1. That's letting me know that page 1, and it's letting me know that there's overset text. So it's a nice warning. Just let me know, is there a problem before I were to actually turn this in or print things out. So that's the first thing. So find a font that looks similar. I'm totally fine if you do not have Dido. For this one's going to be easier to find. You may not have Roboto or you may not have access, but come back up to the filter and switch to sans serif. What this will do is this will list all the different sans serif fonts that are available, and you can pick any one. There's bound to be plenty of different fonts there. You could do Arial. It's kind of basic. That's the main one that they use on the Mac, but you can choose pretty much any other one. You just don't want a really bold one. Pick one that's got a little bit less thickness to the letters. It'll help to kind of soften up the contrast. But again, I'm not overly worried about the exact font being the same. I'm really wanting you to get some experience in building some of this. All right, real quick. Here's the other couple things that I've seen that I anticipate coming up with a possible problem. So when you place this little kiwi inside of Illustrator, when Illustrator is open, he's provided the Illustrator files. And one of the best ways to, since InDesign is a vector program, one of the best ways to be able to do edits to a vector image inside of InDesign is just to drag and drop it in there. But here's the problem. You guys that are using Cameyo can't have Illustrator and InDesign open at the same time, which is absolutely ridiculous that they don't let you do that. Because this is how everybody that uses design software works. Is if you had a Photoshop file, you'd have Photoshop open. You'd come over here, you'd make some changes to it, and then you would save it. So once you get this kiwi in here, see this kiwi, when I drag and drop him over, I'm able to go in and I can actually click on this little guy. I can click on the color and I can change him. You're not going to be able to do that because what's going to happen is you're going to go in and you're going to place, let me find it here. You're going to place this bird directly. Watch what happens when I place him directly. I place him in there. He looks kind of pixelated. Don't worry about that. It's just a low resolution preview. If I go in to change the color, changes the box. Super lame. This is not, I'm not worried about it. It's not your fault. And I appreciate that you're patient with that. And I'm glad you were able to produce things really well with Cameyo, but that is another one of those little instances where it's just not going to work perfect. So what's going to probably end up happening is your stuff is going to, for this particular one, you can hold down the control, hold down the control and the shift key, or command and shift to make it bigger. It looks really crappy. Don't worry about that. Because if I right click on it, there's this option called display performance to make it look better. The key thing is it's just going to end up being black instead of being pink. For the tutorial, I'm not as worried about that. For your own stuff, we can always use Illustrator, build what you want to build with the right colors, save it, close Illustrator, and then go into InDesign and place that correct file. So you won't lose anything. It's just a little easier if you're able to just drag, and then once you're in the program, be able to change it to whatever color you want it to be. So it's a one extra step, but it's so not worth for the tutorial to have you open that file in Illustrator, change the color, then save it, then go to InDesign, then place it. Don't want you to do that. Okay, last bit. When you're going to open the file that's already been made, so that's this one right here, the existing file, he's going to have you go in and open up this brochure. And I've got an old version. Notice my layout looks totally different than yours. I don't have that properties panel that you have. That properties panel is so nice, but I don't have that because I have an old version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just save this. This one's at the very end. The idea is when you first get these documents, you're going to see that the fonts are missing. And he purposely has this because I get this all the time. So many people sent me how-to posters with the fonts not installed. So, and that was not your fault. I didn't tell you about that, but I had to go through and search and try to find these. So when you get to this part, you're not going to be able to use the type kit to replace these. So what you're going to do instead is just choose Find Fonts and find a sans serif font for this one. Actually, for both of them, just look for maybe one of the fonts you already used on the previous one. So with something like this, I'm just going to use Museo Slab. Actually, I'm going to use Museo Slab on this one. Change all. And I already had Roboto installed on this. You might instead, in fact, I'll choose Arial because I know you have that one. And you'll do change all. So what that did is it changed everything, but watch this one last thing I want to show you, and then I'm done. See how it cut the word off? See how there's 2 errors? It's letting me know that there's more text than will fit. So what you'll have to do is if your font is too big, just go in. Be careful on the boxes. There's so, look at all those squares. You're going to go when it's at a diagonal arrow. Double click, it'll make it bigger. And then grab it as a diagonal arrow again and press Control and Shift, and you can drag. If for some reason those keyboard shortcuts don't work, just go ahead and click a couple times inside of the text, and on your font size, just go ahead and shrink it down. Make it smaller and nudge it over. And then just do the same thing with that one. If by chance, this happens to me all the time, you accidentally double click on the red, what that does is it placed it in a whole other text box. It did that article linking. So if that happens, just delete, go back in, double click on it. You can move the thing around. And then just check the other pages, make sure everything's good. And now it's got the little green button and you're good. And then once you're done with this one and you've done the exporting of the other stuff, don't worry about doing chapter 8. You're done. All right. If you run into any problems, just send me a screencast and I'll see what I can do to help you out.